We can get we can get started. And Nate, kick it off.
You're on mute, Nate.
Oh, I'm muted. Sorry about that. Hi, all. I'm Nate Keener. I'm the CEJA Central Regional Administrator. I'll be walking you through the first chunk of our presentation here today. Appreciate your patience as we finalize the policies and procedures for this part of the program. This is the most complex part of probably the most complex CEJA program. So it took us a little extra time to think through how this is supposed to work. So I think we've got a good plan of action here. So we'll jump in. Next slide, please. Okay, during this session, we will cover the following. Uh, we'll have a little welcome and intro, next slide, and then we'll have Returning Residents Program Manual, Chapter 8, Wraparound Services and Transition Services, where we'll talk about the different participant statuses, the returning residents outdate scenarios, so the different scenarios of when folks will be released from this program. We'll discuss partnerships, and then we'll discuss the Energy Workforce Equity Portal. Any questions about the agenda for today? Okay, next slide, please. And as I mentioned, my name is Nate Keener. I'm the CEJA Central Regional Administrator. And so I oversee grant programs in the CEJA Workforce Grant Programs in the Central Region. I'm joined today by Michelle Cerruti, who I'm sure you're all familiar with as your Regional Administrator for the Returning Residents Program. Larry Dawson will also be presenting in the back portion of this presentation. And then we are joined on the call by Diana Fuller, the CEJA Division Manager, as well as our CEJA Grant Managers, Connor and Sarah. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and let's go to the next slide. Really quick Zoom basics. I know this isn't not even our first one of these sessions, so just to be aware that the mute and unmute button is on the bottom left. The start and stop video is right next to that, also on the bottom left. The emojis, you can find those in the React button kind of towards the middle. And let's see, feel free to raise your hand if you have a question. So you can, within that React function, there's a button for raising your hand, and that'll put you in line to ask a question. And then we also encourage you to use the chat function there right next to the React button. And there you can enter questions or respond to our questions and talk to other participants in the call. Next slide, please. So at this time, if you wouldn't mind, please give us an introduction in the chat. If you could include your name and any pronouns, plus your grantee organization, and then the region, geographic location of where you were of your service territory. Hi, Jerry. I think you mentioned earlier with Imani. If you wouldn't mind just telling us where your CEJA project is going to be located. Imani. Okay. Ricky Hamilton, GJA. Abram Garcia, Decatur. Very good. Kiwani. All right. As those are continuing to come in, I thank everybody for participating in that. It's a good check to see if we know how the chat function works. All right. So next question, you can feel free to put in the chat or come off mute. Actually, let's just go ahead and stick with the chat. Make it easy. What do you hope to get out of this workshop today? What are the topics you want to learn more about? All right, here we got a lot more responses coming into the chat now, the intros. Thank you all. What do you want to get out of this training session? More about submitting required monthly and quarterly documents to DCEO. Okay. I don't remember if that's part of this one, but we definitely do have some guidance we will be able to share with you on the monthly and quarterly reports and that when that is appropriate. Anybody else? All right, let's go to the next slide. More about reportings. We got some folks that want to know more about reporting, so that's definitely something we will cover. Although like I said, I'm not sure if it's in this session, but it is definitely something we'll cover, and I know that's also in grant agreements. I think I've already asked for questions, so let's go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, Chapter 8. During this section, we'll overview Chapter 8, which covers wraparound services and transition services. Next slide, please. Okay, so participant statuses. So this next section will provide you with an overview of the available participant statuses in the Returning Residents Clean Jobs Training Program. As a note, the participant statuses are documented in the CEJA reporting system. And we'll learn more about the CEJA reporting system in a subsequent training session, and I believe that is being set up for August 6th. So today we're going to kind of talk about the logic behind the participant statuses, and next week, David and Natasha from the CEJA reporting system team will walk you through how to actually enter those statuses. So let's jump to the next slide. So session 2, we covered participant training, and in this session, we'll start with the necessary participant statuses based on the participant life cycle. And so um, the different statuses that are going to be uh, attached to a participant, they pretty much all fall within that blue box on the screen there. And they include enrolled or in progress, released prior to completion, co-enrolled, completed, exited, and withdrawn. And each of these statuses exist within the participant life cycle shown here. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are each of the possible participant statuses available throughout the training program that correspond to options within the CEJA reporting system. So let's just briefly talk about the definition of each one. So participants with an enrolled or in progress status are those who have received orientation, completed the recruitment steps outlined in Chapter 5, and elected to pursue training. These are all enrolled participants. Participants who are released from the training program prior to completing all the training modules and earning their certifications and credentials are tagged with the released prior to completion status. Co-enrolled are those participants who are released before completing training and then subsequently enroll with another CEJA or FEJA program like Climate Works, Workforce Hubs, Multicultural Jobs, Solar Pipeline Training, Craft Apprenticeship, while receiving wraparound services and transition services. This status can also apply to participants who remain enrolled with the Returning Residents Program who are released prior to completion but co-enroll in training with a non-CEJA clean energy program. Next is completed. The complete status refers to the conclusion of training instruction. This applies to program participants who have completed program training services and are still receiving career transition services and/or wraparound services. Exited will apply to participants who complete all training requirements and who no longer receive any supportive services. This status also applies to participants who are released prior to completion of training and who are handed off to a CEJA program that can complete their training and provide for their wraparound service needs. A quick note as well that there are 2 exit statuses, exit with follow-up and exit with no follow-up. Withdrawn. Participants who discontinue the program due to unforeseen circumstances that make successful completion difficult or impossible receive a withdrawal status. So let's review each of these in more detail. Next slide, please. Participants who have received orientation, completed the recruitment steps, and elected to pursue training are entered as enrolled in the CEJA reporting system. Enrolled participants are currently receiving program services, i.e. the services are in progress. We covered recruitment in orientation session 2, but more information about the recruitment steps are outlined in chapter 5 of the Returning Residents Program Manual. Any questions about enrolled status? Okay, next slide, please. The released prior to completion status applies to returning residence program participants who are released prior to completing their CEJA training program. This status serves as a flag for returning residence program grantees to provide extra support for a participant facing potential training service gaps and who will likely require extra coordination to continue the CEJA clean energy programming. Participants with released prior to completion status are eligible to become co-enrolled given proper planning and follow-up defined on the next slide. Any questions about the released prior to completion status? Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, now the co-enrolled status. This one is a little bit more complex. Okay. Participants who are released before completing training and enroll with another CEJA program like Climate Works or Workforce Hubs, or another FEJA program like Multicultural Jobs, Solar Pipeline, or Craft Apprenticeship, or a non-CEJA/FEJA program while receiving wraparound services and transition services through a participant transition plan are co-enrolled. More information about co-enrollment is available in Chapter 8, and in a moment we'll cover some scenarios where this will apply. Importantly, co-enrollment cannot begin until the sending returning residence program grantee and a receiving CEJA, FEJA, or other state of Illinois workforce program grantee develop a participant transition plan, update the participant's career plan, and enter a supportive service into the CEJA reporting system on the receiving grantee side of the arrangement. At minimum, this will be career planning or transition services to reflect close coordination, potential case management, and staff time from the receiving grantee organization. Once training begins in the receiving CEJA or FEJA program, the status of the participant would be changed from co-enrolled in the returning residence program to exit with follow-up. This participant would continue in the other CEJA or FEJA program as enrolled/in progress. We'll talk more about this shortly. When enrolling with a non-CEJA, non-FEJA program, co-enrollment does not end when training begins, but rather continues until that other training program concludes. At that point, assuming the participant completed the other program training requirements, they would have the completed status and start to receive transition services from the returning residence program grantee. A co-enrolled participant must always be able to receive supportive services, which we'll discuss more in a moment. Any questions about the co-enrolled status? And I'm sure we'll have questions as we actually start to encounter these, but if folks are kind of following along now, any questions with what we've discussed? Okay. Don't be afraid to ask if a question does pop in your head about this, because we know it's complex. Okay, next slide. Okay, complete status refers to the conclusion of training instruction. So this applies to program participants who have completed program training services and are still receiving career/transition services and/or wraparound services. More information about training services is available in Chapter 7. Participants should complete both the bridge program component and a job-specific training option before being designated as complete in the CEJA reporting system. It's important to note that program graduate may be vocabulary used in everyday educational contexts, but it has no relevant designation in the returning residence program, nor in the CEJA reporting system. Complete status is the conclusion of training. Program grantees may provide a graduation ceremony within the confines of IDOC rules and regulations, but outside visitors will not be allowed at these kinds of ceremonies. Any questions about the complete status? Okay, next slide. Exited. Participants who complete all training requirements and who no longer receive any supportive services have exited the program. This is notably different from participants who complete and then continue to receive transition services as they prepare for their outdates and career placement. For these individuals, other supportive services will likely be necessary even if they have completed the training, been released, and await career placement. Participants who exit the program after completing all training requirements and who no longer receive any supportive services but will receive follow-up for longitudinal tracking purposes receive the exit with follow-up status options. Remember that follow-up is different from receiving transition or other supportive services. As a note, a participant who exits the program may return if they are still in IDOC custody or participating in another CEJA program after release, but they would need to connect with a navigator and newly complete intake. Any questions about exited status? Okay, next slide, please. Participants who discontinue the program due to unforeseen circumstances that make successful completion difficult or impossible receive a withdrawn status. There are 7 available options for characterizing withdrawal in the CEJA reporting system. Lack of interest in the clean energy industry, life change requiring full-time employment, illness or other medical reason, death, IDOC or grantee initiated withdrawal due to a disciplinary issue, like failure to participate or meet expectations of the program, failure of a drug test, disruptive behavior, or for reasons of safety, security, and order of the facility. These withdrawals are also known as dismissals. And then finally, transfer to a different facility or other. As a note, before a participant withdraws, staff must meet with the participant to determine if there are any services that could help keep them from withdrawing. In some circumstances, additional support may help the participant change their decision to withdraw. Once the withdrawal decision is finalized, grantees must conduct an exit interview with the participant using the exit interview questionnaire in the CEJA reporting system. Any questions about the withdrawal status? All right.
Question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Question. Yeah, go ahead.
You can go ahead. I'll go after you, Jared.
Just with the withdrawal status, if participants do sign up, but they have a earlier release date, how will we mitigate that if they are released and we don't have that exit interview before they're released? Like we don't get a chance to, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so that will fall under some of these other ones. So the released prior to completion and the co-enrolled will come into play for those. And so release prior to completion is going to cover those folks who get released prior to completing their training. So they've got a release date. And then the co-enrolled will apply for some period after that. They'll either be co-enrolled with a FEJA or CEJA program until training with that new program starts, or they'll be co-enrolled with a non-CEJA, non-FEJA program throughout the rest of their training.
I just want to throw out there that I'm going to be going over some scenarios about all of those situations next. So that might help answer some of your questions.
Yep, awesome.
Yeah, I think that might cover mine. I'll wait till after that.
Okay. And then I think there was one other question. Jerry?
No, that was me. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Cool. All right. Then let's see. Let's jump back into the slide 18, I think. Next slide, please. Yes, okay. So outcomes must be tracked in the CEJA reporting system. Outcomes include the following clean energy jobs or advanced training programs following program completion. Participants who attain a job, participants who are placed in a registered apprenticeship program, participants who are released from IDOC facilities and co-enroll in another CEJA training program, and participants who enroll in continuing education. Any questions about transition outcomes? All right, next slide. Any other questions about any of the topics that I covered before Michelle jumps into the release scenarios, where we'll get much more detail about the release prior to completion and the co-enrolled statuses. All righty. Then with that, I will turn it over to Michelle Cerruti, and she will talk about some of those release scenarios.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks, Nate. So I am going to turn my camera off while I'm talking about all of these because it's pretty lengthy and I'm going to be reviewing some scenarios. So just because I don't see well, I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off. So I want to first review some of the vocabulary for understanding the program and its requirements that we're using. So, a mandatory supervised release, MSR, refers to the day that a resident is scheduled to be released from IDOC custody. And this is also known as their out date. Once a resident reaches this out date, they will begin a period of mandatory supervised release. And residents may be eligible for early release in Illinois if they earn sentence credit. So, for example, eligible inmates can earn up to 50% of their sentence as good time credit, which means that for each day served in prison, 1 day may be subtracted from their sentence. So, these outdate scenarios refer to the possible situations that returning residents, participants, and grantees may encounter upon release from IDOC, thus being released early. So, next slide, please. So let's review a few common outdate scenarios that we're going to talk about on the next few slides. And these will be scenario one, where a participant is released prior to training completion. A second scenario where a participant completes training ahead of schedule. And scenario three and four, where participants released um, out of service area for their co-enrollment, or participant release location is not yet known. And all of these scenarios are taken directly from the original Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, that you responded to for the Returning Residents Program funding. And we will dive deeper into all of these during the next slides. Next slide, please. So let's talk about outdate scenario one, where the participant is released before completion of training. Before we really dig into this slide, though, I'd like to hear from you just to understand how you think grantees should handle this scenario based on what you have heard and what you know of the Returning Residents Program so far. What should the grantee be doing to ensure a positive and a successful outcome for the participant in this outdate scenario? And we'd love to hear your feedback, so please feel free to come off mute or put your response in the chat, but we'd be happy to just hear from you as well. There's not that many of you on here, so anybody have any ideas of I'm going to explain how we think it should work, but we'd love to hear your feedback as well. Any thoughts? And it's okay if you don't. I'm sure you'll have some as we work through all these scenarios. Maybe you'll have some ideas that you might want to interject. Okay. Well,
I
if you
think
think, go ahead.
I was gonna say. So I
Sure.
think if we have some type of pre-session that covers some of the details that you want as an exit information, um, as like a starter and like on a time schedule. So say for instance, if we do it weekly, we always got the information ready in case somebody is leaving in the next week or so. Really just to cover what is required for exit information early off in the game.
Okay.
And I would raise my issue now because I didn't hear it identified in the scenarios, but could you cover what would be the responsibility of us on providing that closeout information on a scenario where an individual signed up for the program and say they got sent to another facility for, say, a discipline infraction or whatever. Because I can understand how that would make it more difficult for us to be able to engage with a participant if they get sent to another institution and totally, removed from the program. So how would that look on our requirement of having to close them out if they got moved to another institution and may not be interested in the program anymore?
And that's a great question, Ricky. We do not have a scenario for that. We're right now just reviewing the scenarios that were in the NOFO, but I can certainly get with DOC to see if that's even a possibility. I'm not aware that they would be transferred to another facility, uh, but it's a very good question, and I made a note of that, so can
Was
get back
that
to
was
you.
that not a part of one of the, I think one of the, when you was explaining if this happens then you would have to, weren't you explaining like if a person happens to get sent out of the facility like for an infraction or gets transferred? I think it's kind of the same thing because usually at Kiwani, if a person was to have a certain kind of infraction or any institution, it'll
Mhm,
mean like you get shipped to a whole nother institution.
mhm. Yeah, I'll certainly ask DOC
Okay.
what would happen in that case, but we don't have a scenario identified for that today, but once I find out from DOC what that might look like, that then we can let you all know how to handle that for sure. Any other thoughts or questions? I am going to get in deeper to these scenarios and when they get released, what you would do. So, okay. Well, you'll have time to ask questions too after a couple of these slides. So I will go ahead and finish on this slide. So uh, and thank you so much for those responses and those questions. So first and foremost, though, we do want grantees. I mean, we expect grantees to do everything they can uh, to support participants and encourage completion before this scenario occurs by providing student support services, which can help participants make up missed work or receive tutoring, retake failed exams to attain completion before an out date. But we know there will be many times that this just isn't possible and participants will be released early. And that's where intensive coordination with your energy transition navigators and other CEJA ecosystem partners come into play. And coordination with other CEJA and FEJA, FEJA programs can give the participant who is released prior to completing inside DOC options to continue training through the nearest workforce hub or the Climate Works pre-apprenticeship programs or the FEJA, and I'm saying FEJA programs such as multicultural jobs program or the FEJA solar pipeline training programs. Grantees should plan, and this returning resident grantees should plan to connect participants with a navigator for help gaining access to these services for participants. And grantees must establish a plan which should be reflected in the participant's career plan that's housed in the CEJA reporting system to put them on the path to successful completion within 2 years of their release from the facility. So during this planning time, the participant will have a status in the CEJA reporting system as in progress. Once they are actually released, that status will change to released prior to completion. And while they are still technically in progress, the status just reflects what is actually occurring. So after the navigator connects the participant to a CEJA or FEJA program, if the participant needs to wait for a new cohort or needs supportive services or needs to retake modules, grantees must continue engagement with the participants to ensure they can transition into another CEJA or FEJA program and successfully complete their training. It is possible that transferring into another CEJA or FEJA program already in progress may be a viable option for returning resident participants who are released before completing inside DOC. If another CEJA training curriculum parallels with the work they've already completed. Before I move on, any questions? Because I know that was a lot for that one slide. And we will go over, you're going to hear this again when you go attend the CEJA reporting system training on how it will, how you would be entering this in the CEJA reporting system. That will be under a whole other training, so you'll be hearing this all again. Next slide, please. Okay. So just some steps that you would take in this scenario. Uh, Grantees must change the status of participants who are released prior to completing their training within an IDOC facility to the released prior to completion once the participant is actually released. The participants have the option to be co-enrolled in another CEJA or FEJA program. And if you recall from our statuses review, that co-enrollment refers to a possible scenario in which a returning residence program participant does not finish their clean energy training before their out date and is then co-enrolled in another CEJA or FEJA workforce program while they are still enrolled with the returning residence program. A participant can be co-enrolled in the returning residence program and another CEJA FEJA program, or even an Illinois workforce program such as WIOA, maybe. I don't know if I think many of you may know about WIOA. Uh, there's a lot of training programs that can be offered through the Illinois WorkNet Centers, which are known as the American Job Centers. That's the name of the American Job Centers in the state of Illinois. And this allows them to continue to receive transition and wraparound services while co-enrolled in one of these programs. So in this situation, the returning resident grantee, the applicable energy transition navigator, and the CEJA and or FEJA grantee would develop a participant transition plan together that outlines obligations on behalf of each party for the returning residence program participant to ultimately be enrolled into a training program. That is the goal. Once a participant transition plan is developed, the participant career plan section would be updated in the CEJA reporting system, and the receiving CEJA FEJA grantee will be able to view this plan, and the participant should begin receiving either a non-training service while waiting to be enrolled in a training program, or in some cases, they may just be directly enrolled into a training program. It depends on the timing of when the training starts. Thus, co-enrollment begins and should be indicated in the CEJA reporting system. And again, we will go into greater detail about how this works and what it looks like in our CEJA reporting system during that training which will be in a couple weeks. Note that once a returning resident is co-enrolled in training and the returning resident program will end and the participant would be exited from the returning residence program once they enter training. However, both program grantees should continue to track completion of training and record outcomes for that participant. Again, we'll show you what this looks like in the CEJA reporting system. But before I move off this slide, do you have any questions about all of that? Because I know, again, it's a lot of information on one slide.
Michelle, I have a question that I'm sorry, I should have raised
Oh, that's
my
okay.
hand. Um, a question. Who initiates the career development plan? Is that done in-house at the DOC facility by a counselor, or is that part of the grantee's responsibility? And forgive me for not knowing that.
Oh no. Oh gosh. No, we don't, no worries about that. We've been trying to work through what this workflow might look like. And again, we want to be good partners. So if we see this isn't working out real well, we want to know, we want feedback. But our thought is that career plan would be updated by the returning residents program before they leave DOC. So you want to understand, okay, this is what we're going to plan for with you because you're asking them what will this, what are your goals? Uh, you may be working with the navigator and developing that career plan with them too, because that navigator is going to be a key partner in helping you find all of these training programs. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. And
Okay.
that would be something else to discuss as the navigator, but that's later on in the process.
Okay. Any other questions? Did somebody else have one?
Yes, I had a question. So if I'm understanding,
Mhm.
they may begin in returning residents program, clean energy training. And if they have an option, when they're co-enrolled, they can go into another field. Is that what you're saying? Doesn't necessarily have to be clean energy, as long as they're enrolled in a CEJA or FEJA program?
So if they're enrolled in a CEJA or FEJA program, it will be clean energy. And that is ultimately the goal that they pick up where they left off. That's hopefully. Um, but we also realize, and I'm just going to give an example, maybe they finished the bridge inside DOC. And maybe they decided, I don't know if I want to go into clean energy, to a job specific clean energy. Maybe they want to do something else. That's when you would want to connect them with other workforce providers, such as if you connect them with the Illinois WorkNet Center, they're going to have other training options through their WIOA program that might be available, and they may have other programs too. Um, but ultimately, yes, we would hope they want to go into clean energy, but we all know people change their mind. But if they do want to continue with the clean energy, that's why you would work closely with the navigator in the area where they have been released so that the navigator can help you find clean energy programs that they are interested in.
But the decision is ultimately theirs.
Yes.
Okay.
Does
Thank
that
you.
make sense to everybody? And
Yes,
my
to
team, if
me.
you have anything to throw in, please feel free. Okay.
I was just going to add upon release.
Upon release, yes, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
No, that's okay. I just want to
I
make sure everybody's on the same page.
okay, yes. While they're inside, that's the only program they have available that you all are providing are definitely clean energy. Any other questions? Okay. Um, next slide, please. So let's talk about the scenario in which, again, the participant is released before training completion, but maybe they're released very far away from where you are actually providing services upon release. Um, is there anything that you should or could do differently than what is outlined in this slide? And that might be a better question after I go through what again what some of the ideas are that we have that you should be doing. So again, the most important thing for you to do is ensure that the participant is supported and has options for completion. Being far from your service territory may mean that there is a greater need for coordination and reliance on the supportive services referrals of other CEJA and FEJA programs. And this kind of coordination beyond an initial meeting and career plan change should be captured in the participant transition plan. So, depending on the arrangement, returning residence program grantees could remain financially responsible for supportive services, and they will certainly rely on other grantees for some level of coordination and referral and case management services. But parties to the participant transition plan may also decide to use barrier reduction funds to more directly serve co-enrolled participants because just a reminder, those workforce hubs have barrier reduction services available, which just offer might have a larger menu of services, a little bit larger funding than you all might have. And what if there are no other CEJA or FEJA programs in the area where a participant is released prior to completion? You may remember that co-enrollment can apply to non-CEJA FEJA programs such as Illinois WorkNet Centers. Again, those are the American Job Centers in Illinois. The returning resident grantee personnel should strive for the same kind of coordination with these other organizations and develop participant transition plans for their participants to complete training. One major difference between co-enrollment with non-CEJA FEJA programs is that returning residence program grantees retain the co-enrollment status through training and then denote completion when training with that non-CEJA FEJA program ends. Coordination and referrals for supportive service will be paramount, and the returning residence program grantee will likely remain financially responsible for training and supportive services. But this should be addressed in the participant transition plan. Once training from the receiving program ends, the grantee personnel should change the participant status to completed. Again, a lot said in this slide, so let me know if you have questions.
Michelle, I just want to clarify too, that would be for clean
Hmm?
energy training, not just any training. It has to be clean energy.
Yes, thank you, Diana. Okay, again, this is going to be reviewed again when we do the CEJA reporting system training. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So, returning resident outdate scenario 2, where a participant completes training ahead of schedule while they're in DOC. We know that's a possibility as well. Um, so, in this scenario, a participant may successfully complete after finishing the bridge and the job specific training while they're inside DOC. but they do so many months or even a year ahead of their release date. Enrolled participants will receive some prioritization based on their corresponding outdates, but this may not always align ideally. So some participants may experience a long wait between training completion and release. So it's important for returning residents program grantees to assist individuals who complete during this phase of the program with career and transition services while they're inside. Any thoughts or questions? I'd love to know what are some ideas or some ways that grantees think they could address this scenario. Again, these are participants that completed training, but they're not going to be released for a while. Any ideas? Thoughts? Okay. So something to think about. And, again, at some of our future or next trainings, if you've thought of some, we'd love to hear some of your ideas so other grantees can learn as well. So next slide, please. So I'm going to give you some ideas of what these services, these career and transition services might look like. Um, they could include providing career information, resume writing, interview preparation, job application assistance, and information about further training opportunities and job referrals that individuals who complete can pursue after release. Your transition staff should also work closely with training staff to provide necessary study and review materials for individuals who complete to help them retain training information and knowledge during this period before release. Any questions about those ideas?
Yes, this is Pamela. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great slide here. Definitely prompts some ideas about wraparound services. One of the things I'm thinking about for this specific scenario is it possible to provide program updates to participants uh, via correspondence?
Hmm. That's a great point. We'll check on that. So give me an idea. So like what type of program updates via correspondence? Just
Updates about how the CEJA program is developing, things that we're doing to strengthen our efforts with our participants. We have a correspondence family support program providing updates about the work that we're doing there in support of CEJA participants.
Mhm.
Just things that would increase in the potential for engagement
Okay.
and connection with the participants pre-release.
What kind of correspondence? Like, are you talking emails or just letters?
Letters, snail mail.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, that's definitely something we can talk to DOC about. Make sure get their input and thoughts about that. So thank you for bringing that up. Making a note of that.
I mean, some of the things we're thinking about, we're thinking about ways to engage the participants. We've been talking about a newsletter as something that we could share with participants, both pre and post release. So, sharing a newsletter could be an example of a program update.
Great. Definitely, anything we do that hasn't been already approved by Department of Corrections definitely has to be approved. So we'll definitely can bring that up. Great ideas. Any other comments, questions? Okay.
I'll just add on to the great point that Pamela asked. If it were possible, I think it would be great to be able to have the program like be able to get on a messaging list for her point, because that would add to the ease of giving them kind of quick and up to date information. The snail mail offer is a good one, but mail process is very slow, and they have started to let them in Kiwani access certain elements of technology like messaging. So I think that would be a great ask too. If it can go through that messaging, it would definitely be a lot more fulfilling for the participant.
Mhm. Definitely ask. I know most participants inside DOC do not have the option of accessing online um, information, but definitely a question that can be asked.
Oh, they have like personal devices where they can purchase like do video call. Well, they can do the video calls on there. They got video call messaging centers in there, but they got email because they get like little devices that they can send emails out on.
Mhm.
Not actual emails though, but messages.
I definitely will ask about that and get back to all of you because I know each facility might is probably a little different too. So anything else before I move to the next slide? Hey, great. Thank you.
Michelle, I would just add, as we follow up on that too, that might need to be a part of everyone's work plan if it's not already. Thank you.
Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about participants released far from service areas or release locations are really not initially known. So if a returning resident who completes the program inside DOC is released far from your service area or the release location is not initially known, you must ensure a warm handoff for that individual to a nearby CEJA or FEJA provider. Again, Energy Transition Navigator teams is who you should partner with and should be aware of these situations and help with this transition. The Navigator organization must be apprised of transition and wraparound service needs so they can refer the returning resident to the appropriate nearby providers. So it's very important to keep that service needs assessment updated inside the CEDAR reporting system. If the returning resident who completes will not be released anywhere near another CEJA FEJA provider, including an energy transition navigator, the returning residents program grantee must make a warm handoff to the nearest Illinois WorkNet Center, which again are your American Job Center networks throughout Illinois. We don't want to not connect them with with the support system, as you all know. It's especially important to establish connections and working relationships with other workforce partners so that these transitions and warm handoffs can go as smoothly as possible. In situations where a handoff will occur, the returning residence program grant team must develop a participant transition plan with that receiving partner. Any questions about that slide or comments? Okay. Next slide, please. So we're just going to continue a little bit more discussion around this scenario. So ET navigators can help during that transition. As we mentioned earlier in the presentation, you and the navigator teams should prioritize transition of returning residents who complete to clean energy jobs first and foremost. A non-clean energy job secondarily, or further training opportunities. Those are kind of the priority of where you want to guide them. Any questions? And our next slide, please, is just a space for questions or comments about what you've learned so far. Okay. Well, so we're going to move into our next
I'm
session.
sorry.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Excuse me, Michelle, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, once that handoff occurs,
Hmm.
where does our responsibility end? And I'm speaking from a wraparound services perspective. Where does our responsibility end, or does it?
So basically, that's what these scenarios are trying to guide you into doing. So um, you have funding for wraparound services, right? So
Yes.
that's where that participant transition plan happens. If you're handing them off to another, I'm just in one of these scenarios, we talked about handing them off to another CEJA training provider. Maybe it depends on their scenario, but maybe they didn't finish inside and maybe they got through the bridge program and now they got released early, so they want to go into a job specific training. Let's just say it's solar. And then you want to work with a workforce hub that's providing that solar training where they're being released. And that's where that plan comes into play because you can say, okay, I have allocated this much in support for Joe, who's coming to your facility. I only have this much money for these things. What are you going to provide? Because you just want to make sure you're both not providing and double dipping, that the participant isn't double dipping, right? So that's how you're planning. You're just really saying here's what we can do, what are you going to do? Does that make sense? But once that person enrolls in the clean energy training, you're done. You can exit that person and now you're going to just start transition services. Just follow up, making sure they're on track.
I see.
And this is pending you can't offer the services to the person, right? So if even if they go somewhere else and the services we offer are still valid, you can still serve that client. We can still move them through the process. But if we can't serve that client, then we have to send them to another organization. Is
Yeah,
that what I'm getting clear on?
I believe so. It's really going to depend on the scenario. So let's pretend that they are released and they completed all their training inside DOC. And so your goal is to get them connected to a job, right? So if you have those partners in place that are working with them to get them that job, great. But maybe you don't. Maybe they're being released to an area that you didn't have anybody set up because you don't know exactly where they're going to be released. We're trying to give you some ideas of who you could partner with. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does.
Yes, it does. Yes, it makes it a
Right.
lot clearer.
And
Thank you.
always, we understand, and yes, Ricky, those we're trying not to duplicate services and trying to coordinate services. So uh, we know this is a very complicated program, brand new. We're still figuring it out. So always feel free to reach out to me, and we can work through your scenario that may come up. Because we also all know we've all worked with um, this population. There's going to be something come up we didn't even think of. We all know that's going to happen. So, okay, well, I'm gonna let my colleague Larry Dawson talk about transition and career services.
All right. Thank you, Michelle, and good afternoon, everybody. As Michelle mentioned, I'm going to talk about transition and career services. And these involve activities that expose participants to clean energy job opportunities and advanced training programs and help them to gain employment. We went over a few services during the participant scenario section, but we'll take a little bit of a closer look at the timing and requirements of these services. Transition and career services should be offered throughout the program before training to identify participants' areas of interest, during the training as they learn more, and after the training as they await release. And then further, after release, when they're looking for career and future opportunities in clean energy. Keep in mind that these services must be provided in a manner that aligns with IDOC security protocols while within the DOC facilities. Career fairs, for instance, will have to take place usually outside of the facilities and are only available to participants who have been released. Next slide, please. So your transition staff will begin transition services by working with participants to complete the pre-transition career assessment plan. Complete this 3 to 4 weeks before the end of training. This tool is intended to determine participants' skill levels, service needs, barriers to employment or apprenticeship replacement, occupational goals, and career pathways. It addresses the occupational knowledge, skills, and abilities associated with participant career goals and the services needed to reach them. The completed pre-transition career assessment and plan should be uploaded into the CEJA reporting system under the participant's file uploads area. Information from the pre-transition career assessment and plan must be used to update participants' career goals in the CEJA reporting system. As participants learn more about the clean energy and progress along their personal career journey, their goals may change. But be sure to account for this flexibility and decision-making in the CEJA reporting system. The pre-transition career assessment and plan also asks participants a series of questions about the transition and career services that they would like to receive to assist them with their transition to a job, registered apprenticeship, or advanced training program. The transition services that they select must be recorded and tracked in the CEJA reporting system. Grantee personnel can select them in a drop-down services menu in the career plan section of the CEJA reporting system, and transition staff must regularly update the system to show which specific transition services they have provided. Okay, next slide. So your transition staff must dedicate time to building relationships with employers, training programs, registered apprenticeship programs, and contractors to set up connections and resources for participants once they're ready to transition. Let's pull up your work plan, if you have it available. As we reviewed in session 2, participant information will be listed on the staffing plan tab, the activities and outcomes, and potentially the implementation timeline. And take a look at the questions here. If you haven't had opportunity when contemplating and working on your work plan, we'd like to have an opportunity where if you can't answer some of these questions now, like for instance, who are your dedicated transition staff and partners? How will you ensure a warm handoff to your other CEJA program partners, rather? And what about non-CEJA partners like the American Job Centers? So if you would like to, you can maybe even put it in the chat if you've got ideas or you'd like to come off the chat to talk about and kind of keeping in mind some of those scenarios that Michelle talked about earlier, and working with other partners. In what ways are you prepared to be able to transition people from your from your care, if you will, to those of partners in the communities that they're going to? Any thoughts? As you know, locally, there are many organizations that provide reentry services. Certainly, as Michelle talked about earlier with the co-enrollment idea, that there are generally in at least 14 communities around the state, there will be a network hub available, or potentially a ClimateWorks hub available, and certainly our CEJA program grantees in many communities throughout the state as well. And maybe this is something you would just like to further contemplate.
Excuse me, Larry.
Sure.
I did sign up to receive the newsletters from the Illinois Justice, and they were emphasizing under the last newsletter the adult transition centers that will be hosted at the One WorkNet centers across the state. It would probably be of value to wraparound services if we had I don't know, quarterly meetings or meetings with those teams to understand what they see in their regional communities of value and how to work with what services are provided within that network or that framework regionally. And what we're doing here to even give them a heads up of who's transitioning into their community so that there is a relationship prior to the release of the reentry participant.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. More communication is always better, right?
Absolutely. And to have services available. They're the boots on the ground in their areas. They know where those services are for more than just jobs that can assist that person as they reenter.
Right, right, and that's a fantastic question. Comment rather, and that we know that the participants will be going back to communities all over the state. We do also know that our clean energy jobs related footprint does not cover every area of the state, and so you'll have to depend on some local organizations that may not be within our ecosystem, if you will, to partner with, and them knowing exactly what services and resources are available will be helpful for you and the participants. And that's a great comment.
One of the things that I thought about, not meaning to take, conversation, but if they know of projects that are being built out in their area and who that contractor is, then it would be great with some of the Imani, knowledge base that they know how they can help with payroll incentives for hiring this person. Then that gives us information to provide to that adult transition person as well. Now we're working as a team. They've got something to say to that contractor that is a benefit than just asking for a job. Here's how it also can enhance your situation with SREX. You get more money, the whole 9 yards.
It's great. I think I heard someone else wanted to make a comment too.
Yeah, I was just going to also support Karen's comment in that I think what she's also suggesting is that our collaboration, we aim for our collaboration to be very strong with our partners so that it's not even, it doesn't even seem like a handoff, that we're just, constantly working with our participants in terms of facilitating that relationship with them and also managing the experiences of the participants in such a way that we continue to be informed about their growth and development and their needs. And so we aim that for continued collaboration, so that at all times we continually facilitate that wraparound care.
And that's key, right? Because your organization and staff have been the ones who've been working with these individuals for months, and relationships get built, and you certainly want to make sure that they end well with good placements, or in some cases early releases, where get into necessary training to keep their career journey going. So that's key too. Any other comments? Okay. Next slide, please. So we kind of talked about support, right? So some of the wraparound supports that you'll be providing to returning residents include things like transportation, housing, mentorship, financial literacy. Food is a big one for some folks. Certainly helping people to obtain or recover IDs or driving education fees. In some cases, childcare, family care, health care, legal assistance, expungements, and whatnot, and accommodations certainly. And for a lot of folks who've been out of circulation for a while, technology assistance. And there are a number of different wraparound support services that your organizations can offer. And it's important too that you, in your contemplation of this, that is included in your own supportive services policy locally on what kinds of things that you can provide assistance with. So you won't be able to begin offering these wraparound services, though, until certainly the participants, most of them, until they've actually exited DOC. But it's important to note that the returning residence program grantees must also work closely with the Department of Correction, their own service provider staff, as well as any relevant partners, to make sure that the participants who are nearing their release will have adequate support to continue their clean energy career pursuits. Next slide, please. So to plan for the participants' wraparound service needs, you should work with each participant during the intake process to complete the service needs assessment. Now, this identifies the supportive services needs of that participant. However, there will be several questions related to wraparound services that will not yet apply to returning residents while they're incarcerated within DOC. For example, transportation issues, childcare, healthcare, housing, technology. These particular wraparound service questions should be skipped during the initial assessment, but should be reassessed 2 weeks prior to the participant outdates. Grantees will be required to deliver or develop a policy and a scope of services you'll be providing based on your needs and the geography that you'll be covering. The wraparound services that participants require must be recorded and tracked in the CEJA reporting system. The grantee personnel can select them in a drop-down services menu of the reporting system, and the supportive services staff must regularly update the system to show which wraparound services they have provided to the participant. Next slide, please. Your support staff must dedicate time to building the relationships with service providers to set up the connections and resources for participants once they're ready for their outdates. Keep in mind that these services that you're providing in-house versus the ones that will require more coordination, so we say, outside of your organization or immediate returning residence program team. Always coordinate with your Energy Transition Navigator team and other CEJA programs. It's really, really important because for certain participants, particularly those who may have exited the facility before completing their training, that they can get enrolled with one of the CEJA programs to continue training, or in some cases, even though they finished, they need some additional supports to ensure that they're able to successfully continue their job search. So you want to make sure that you're staying in close contact with any CEJA partners, particularly to make sure that your participant doesn't fall through the net. Now, again, it's another opportunity to take a look at your work plan, as we discussed before in section 2, about partner information that will be listed in the staffing plan tab. So in some cases, if you do have additional partners, it's very important for us from a work plan perspective to have the names and contact information of all people who will be working or representing the CEJA program in the public, or particularly with our participants. So it's important to ensure that the contact information and names of any partners are in the staffing plan tab of the work plan, as well as folks who are a part of your direct organizational team. Again, the questions to consider, who are these dedicated supportive services staff and partners? Who will you be ensuring that warm handoff with? And I love the comment earlier about not even having it feel like a handoff, having it be so seamless that it's almost invisible to the participant. And also, what about the non-CEJA partners like American Job Centers, for instance? Next slide, please. So lastly, we'll walk through how grantees are required to support participants in registering as an equity eligible person in the Illinois Power Agency's Energy Workforce Equity Portal, which is a key step in connecting them to jobs in the clean energy sector, among other steps. So what I will do is, here, I guess maybe I have to stop sharing my video, but I'd like to drop in the chat connection to the website for where is my chat? There it is. And that is the website to the Energy Equity Portal, which is operated and run by the Illinois Power Agency. And that just gives them the ability to be in the pool of clean energy related trainees and equity eligible persons who clean energy employers have access to in order to contact for potential job opportunities. So the portal itself is really just an online resource to help connect clean energy companies with qualified job seekers. And again, especially people with equity eligible backgrounds, but participants of the CEJA workforce programs qualify as equity investment eligible people. And making these connections is a key aspect of ensuring that, one, the clean energy industry in Illinois continues to grow, but also that that folks who really need access to these jobs are connected to the employers as well. The portal also provides a clean energy job listing dashboard there where participants and transition staff can also search for jobs. So it's a very valuable resource. Next slide, please. All right. So to register as an equity eligible person, you go to the job seekers page on the portal and you click on register as an equity eligible person. And the grantees can fill out this form on behalf of the participants with their permission, of course. or you can help them fill out the form themselves, which is what we most recommend. Whenever possible, it is also recommended to complete the registration with these participants after they have been released from the IDOC facility. So what they will need is the following. They'll need basic contact information, including phone number, email address, in addition to available shifts, if applicable, training program information that they've completed, their completion date, skills and certifications that they've received, as well as the region or regions where they will be available for work. Registering for the Energy Workforce Equity Portal requires participants to provide a certificate of completion from their CEJA program. So participants can also attach a resume to further aid in their having an attractive profile, if you will, for the employers to be able to reach out to them. And I think we can move to the next slide, please. And so we've hit another one of those junction points where if you have any questions on the slides that you've seen thus far today, now would be a good time to ask them. Any questions for me or any of the other regional administrators?
I just have a quick question. Is this, I see that this has been getting recorded. Is this going to be shared with everyone after the, like sometime later today or in the future, this recording?
Yes, in the very near future, if not today, perhaps maybe even tomorrow. Typically, all of these, we recognize, and I think both Nate and Michelle mentioned earlier, that this is a lot of information. And so we definitely want to make sure you have an opportunity to go back and refresh with the slides. So yes, we'll be providing that.
Okay, thanks.
I also want to just say these are all posted in your partner guide. So hopefully you're all familiar with how to access your partner guide in Illinois WorkNet.
Thanks, Michelle. Any other questions? Okay. I guess we'll continue on. We've only got a few more slides left. Next slide, please. So there, as has been referred to earlier, we've had a series of orientation sessions, and today is listed here near the bottom. But the last entry is each one of these orientation sessions. I guess if I can categorize them as these are the more programmatic side, and they're usually followed by a system related training so that you can kind of see how that last orientation plays out with your entry or engagement with the CEJA reporting system. And so we have the next training regarding the system is August 6th from 10 to 11. And we've got if I can grab that out of there, not maybe. The registration for that. And I think by registering for this one, perhaps maybe that was also be included. But here is in the chat is also the link to the upcoming orientation part B for the system implementation of everything that we've been talking about. Next slide, please. So again, you've seen the names and contact information for folks related to these CEJA programs, the returning residents, You can see by grant manager which of the grantees will be your contact. Connor Bertram for Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership and SAFER, Sarah Graham with AOE and Imani Works. And then you have the listing of all of the regional administrators, both myself, Larry Dawson, and Nate Keener as kind of backup to our returning resident superstar regional administrator, Michelle Cerruti, who will be your primary contact as a regional administrator for this program. But our contact information is all here. Next slide, please. And then finally, the evaluation or feedback. If you can take a moment to click on the QR code and complete a very short evaluation survey here the QR code will take you to a link for. And I can also provide it, I think, in chat to make it easier. There you go. But your feedback is very important to us as we're providing these training resources, both programmatic, policy manual related, as well as system related, in helping us to enhance our training efforts. I think that is it for today. And again, we can open the floor for any final questions. Certainly, this isn't it. If something comes up, comes to mind after this session is over, certainly you can still reach out to your designated grant manager or to Michelle.
Thanks, Larry. I just want to say real quick too, I know Jerry, there were a couple questions from Imani Works about reporting, and we have your monthly reports. That's been being submitted by Naya, so you might want to reach out to Naya or Karen just to check in with them. But I'm also happy to hop on a call with Sarah, our grant manager, and Maureen to review
You
those
know,
monthly
Michelle, I have
reports.
been on those calls, not to interrupt. I guess maybe I was not clear in my request. I think my questions were answered about what was
Oh,
the
okay.
support and wraparound services partner in the reporting process, what they would be needing to track and what how often would that be entered into the system? And that was kind of answered, and I did take notes on that as well. Just as I know that they are a big part of the team and have a compliance part of what is submitted on a monthly and quarterly basis. So that was answered. Thank you.
Oh, okay, great. Great, great, great. Okay.
Uh, what,
Uh-huh.
one other thing, on the career plan, that career plan that's established after they have gone through the orientation, after they have done the necessary career planning, is then initiated by the grantee as they go through, or is that, and that's what I'm just not
Mhm.
clear about,
Sure.
that individual development career plan, who is that reentry participant talking to at that point? And
Okay.
excuse my dog.
So we do have Natasha on. She's our CEJA reporting system administrator and Dave Garvey, but the career plan lives in the CEJA reporting system. And again, it is just a plan, so that's good to go over with your participant while they're inside DOC just to understand what their career goal is. So it's whoever your organization designates to work with them on that. Um, I believe that there's a paper option in case you don't have access to a computer while you're inside right away. where you can fill those out and then enter them into the CEJA reporting system. But that plan, that career plan can be updated because we know when you're working with individuals that may change. Is that answering your question, Jerry? And Natasha, have you went over that yet in the CEJA reporting system, the career plan? Natasha or David, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, I was talking and I had
Oh, that's
I was
okay.
double muted on accident.
Oh,
Um, yeah, no, I can't remember if we've gone. I'll have to go back and look at the um recordings. If we've gone over the career plan, we can most definitely do that again for the next session, just to review it. But the career plan in the system goes through and mainly like documents the services, the plans that they're, of which training services they're going to receive, and the planned start and end dates for each of those services. And so they'll need to be that from a career planning standpoint. That would be what they would need to do, just as far as what's documenting services, as far as who talks to the person and talks about their interests and, that sort of thing. Um, you know, that's more of a program thing. I think that's what Michelle was saying, whoever you have assigned to do that.
thanks, Natasha. Did that answer your question, Jerry? I hope.
It wasn't Jerry, it was
Oh,
Karen. For
I'm
some
sorry.
reason, no, for some reason, I'm
You're,
showing up as Jerry.
you
So,
are. You're on here twice. That's why I've been calling you Jerry.
yes, and even I had to pause and say, was it
I
Jerry?
know, and I was wondering. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I just noticed
I
there's two
was
Jerry.
just explaining that in the chat. I so apologize, Karen.
Well,
Right.
I'm
Really
so
had
glad.
to,
I know I'm looking at the chat too, and I'm like, wait, what?
But but I guess I can answer for everybody. That's actually, Karen, that's actually a part of the pre-release navigator role that Chris is working on. I got on a call with him yesterday for the person he's actually interviewing. So that might be why you haven't heard this part, because that's one of the roles and portions that Chris is preparing for that pre-release navigator. They will be preparing that plan as far as our collaborative is concerned, from what I understand.
okay.
Thank you. Sorry, Karen. I didn't know you were. Thought you were Jerry.
That's okay. That's okay. I've had worse said about me, trust me. I have
Oh,
another question. I know this is the first time for this particular program, but are there other roles that mimic the pre-release navigator that we could utilize some best practices that they may have, put in place so that we don't have to reinvent or have a broader understanding about how that navigator is operating in their role on other in other training
mhm.
positions.
So the Energy Transition Navigator program is brand new, just like this one. So this is new for all of us, but I definitely can ask Department of Corrections, how they deal with connecting their returning residents when they leave the facility with other programs in general, if that would help.
That helps a lot because we've discussed on our team if they're being sent to different places across the state,
Yeah.
you almost have to have a relationship
Yep.
with that lead agency that
Hmm.
services this population in that community.
And
Because there's no way you can know everything across the whole
Yeah.
state.
And that's where I can help you a lot, Jerry, because I'm here to be a resource for you too. So I can help you find that energy transition navigator in that might cover that community. I also can help you find the Illinois WorkNet Center that will cover that community. Between the two of those, wherever they're released, there should be services available.
Great. Jerry and I both thank you.
I'm happy to do that for any of you. And as well as Larry and Nate, because Larry covers all of the Northern Territory. Nate covers all of the Central Territory in Illinois. I cover all of the Southern, but I still know where all the Illinois WorkNet centers are, and so between the three of us, we can connect you somewhere.
Thank you, Michelle, because as we know, the recidivism really is at a crucial part once they're
Yes.
released. And support services are the main thing to get them connected to so that they have that accountability to themselves and to others.
Yep. And there's many reentry service partners throughout the state as well we can connect you with.
Can I say something?
You can.
I think the best example to Karen's point, I think by this being a new role, maybe the best example specifically with Kiwani of how that navigator role, that pre-release navigator role will work would probably come from um I would say a resource on here would be Abraham with the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership because they developed the program where I think they were like the first real one to do that pre-release role, and I'm pretty confident in saying that's the only program or role like that that Kiwani may have done. So that might be our best source
Mhm.
right there, the Chicago partnership.
They are definitely a good source, and Chicago Partnership is part of that Illinois WorkNet system. And Kiwani is very familiar with the WIOA programs because I know they've had some WIOA funded training programs inside uh, the Kiwani Center. I'm pretty sure they had a mobile welding lab at one time too, but
They did. They showed us the space where it
yeah,
was previously. They did.
yeah, yeah. So they will definitely have a good understanding of how to connect um, those that are being released to services. But you are right. Chicago Cook has many different branches that Abram, I'm sure, can help guide you to the right pathway if they're Cook County for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. We're also providers of the CEJA Workforce Hubs for everybody in the call here
Yep.
in the Chicago and Cook area. So we have four locations on the south side and then four locations on the west sides of Chicago
Mhm.
where we were operating our CEJA Workforce Hubs.
Yep. And the reason we are promoting the navigators, this energy transition navigators, as being really your first point of contact is because that is their mission and purpose with CEJA and FEJA to help you find the best hub. And as every hub could be offering something a little different for a training program. So that way you have a source to help identify the clean energy training programs that your participant might want to go to. So I hope we were able to answer all of your questions today, and I know you're going to have more. Uh, And we will continue to have ongoing TA sessions for you too. We don't just have a few, we usually set up a cadence, so we'll be doing that very soon as well. But we're looking forward to our next session on the CEJA reporting system.
Yay.
Any other questions, comments? Okay.
Oh,
Well,
thanks so much for all you guys' effort and beautiful information. Thank you.
Thank you to the two Jerrys.
yes. Yeah, I thought I was losing my mind too, because I'm like, wait a minute. I
I'm
know
gonna
you just
send
Will
asked
the
that.
Yeah, I
will the
think
real Jerry please stand up?
I'm gonna send the other Jerry all my bills.
Well, thank you all for your time and your patience as we get through this program. And again, we want to be good partners, so definitely want your feedback on how all of this is working and how these work plans are, our work flows are going. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great rest of your afternoon.